I feel like I should have a drum roll going, but I don't have one. I could probably find one, but I can't be bothered. So I'm just going to show you. This is my magic ball. This is 1.5 kilograms of leftover yarn from crochet and, yes, weaving projects. I nearly said knitting. I always nearly say knitting, and I don't actually know how to knit. So I don't know what that's about. Anyway, here's my leftovers in a ball. Gaze upon it. It is beautiful. It's so round. Now, I use this for crochet usually. I've made a circle shrug, a big shawl. I have woven with it. I made my hat, my very good hat. I love this hat. It's a very good hat. So this time I'm going to be making a shirt / poncho situation. I don't exactly know what it's going to be when it's finished. Hopefully a wearable garment, but whether or not I want to wear it in public, I don't know. So what I'm going to do is take my magic ball and use this as the weft. It's not going to work for warp. And the reason is twofold. 2 reasons why it won't work as warp. First of all, a lot of it is this kind of loosely plied yarn, which you can't really see very well. Try that. Which would just shred on the heddle. And it's because it's a mix of different yarns. Like there's some yarns in there that would work really well as warp, but these loosey ones won't. And some of them are very thin and would snap. All of that. The other reason is it's all held together with knots, with the magic knot. I'll put a link to the tutorial for that in the description because it's a really handy thing to know for joining your yarn, especially if you want to do a great big magic ball. So the knots hold fine for crochet and knitting and for weaving as weft, but they won't take the tension as warp. So I'm going to put this just on some plain black cotton. The black cotton will make the bright colours brighter and it won't wash out the lighter colours. It'll make them look a bit stronger as well. So this is falling apart. It's just going, no, I don't want to be involved, I'm going to go. That's because once it gets to about this big, it's quite hard to wrap it tidily, which is one of the reasons why I'm using it up. So we'll see how much of this I'm going to get through. It is currently, as I said, 1.5, I think it's 1.54 kilograms. And we'll see what it weighs at the end, if I remember to do that. If I haven't remembered to do that, let me know in the comments and I'll weigh it. Okay, so I'm going to go and get going on that because I'm excited about this project. I think it might be a fun one. I'll give you a minute to be impressed by my perfect rendering of the human form. So, here's the plan. I've got me. I've flattered myself somewhat. So what I want is 2 panels to form the top, which will go like this to about the elbow with a slash neck. So there's 1 panel on the front, and you can probably deduce I'm in the shadow. There's another panel on the back. Then I'm going to have 2 smaller panels. One will sit there on the front and the other one will be on the back. That's badly scaled, but it's giving you the idea. And then 1 long panel which will then fold around. I'll draw an arrow to show you that it folds around. So that, instead of a side seam, is a solid piece of fabric that goes around to the back with a matching panel on the other side. Does that make any sense? I hope so. So these ones will be running with the stripes like this. And that one will have the stripes like this. And then these ones will have the stripes like this. It's a simple plan and it should work. So I started by winding 4 little cakes off the main ball because it's easier to load onto the shuttle that way. And as you can see, the ball is a little bit unwieldy at this size. I've got it in a mixing bowl to make sure that it didn't roll around the house while I wound the cakes. So with my 4 little cakes ready to go, I went into weave. I didn't show the warping up process because it is just a plain black cotton. And I don't have a lot of footage of the weaving because it is just a plain weave. I'm not doing anything particularly fancy. One thing I did do was double the warp on the first hole and the first slot on each side, just to give it a little bit more stability, stop it from drawing in quite so much, though it did draw in a little bit anyway, and to give myself something secure to sew into when I was joining the panels. There's not a lot of footage of the weaving because the tripod right next to the loom is a bit annoying as it turns out. I need to figure out a better way. So here's how I measure the length while it's on the loom. I use a stitch marker, and then before I advance the warp, I measure from that stitch marker to an easy number, like 10 centimetres or 8 centimetres or whatever. So I go from that, and then I move the stitch marker up to the end of the tape, and then I make a note of the number and add it to the previous number if there is one. So all the pieces off the loom already, because that was quite a quick process in video form. They came out really well. I love all the mix of colours. I love very much this sort of sunsetty effect here. and they came out to size just about. So 80 centimetres on the loom, which was the length of the top two panels that I wanted, came out to be about 79 centimetres off the loom, which was pretty much expected because things do tend to shrink a little bit once you take them off the loom. And here are the edges that I did by needle weaving the fringe back into the piece. It's possible to get a really neat edge doing that. I mean, not if you're me, but it is possible. I've seen it done. So I didn't want a fringe. And then I put it in the washing machine. And then I put it in the washing machine. And after wet finishing. So most of the panels look pretty much the same. They are a little bit smaller. They are a little bit, there's a bit of bloom, which is when the yarns expand slightly. So there is some shrinkage in the cotton warp, but not, well, there is actually quite a lot, and it is enough to worry about because it did kind of throw my plans right out. Another thing that threw my plans out a little bit was this piece, which has a nice big felted section in the middle, because what I forgot is that this particular yarn is pure wool and cannot be machine washed even on a cold wash, which is what I used. So I do have some felted pieces in the middle and on this one on the very end of my panels, which caused a bit of a kerfuffle, and I had to rethink my design almost completely. Well, entirely completely. So then I cut the little fringy bits off once I'd wet finished, and then it was time to assemble the whole thing. So to do that, I am literally just using the same cotton that I was using as the warp, which means that when I wash this, it might get a little bit weird again, but we'll find out when I wash it, yeah? And I'm just sewing the panels together on the flat to keep the seams nice and flat so that it looks pretty decent. Now for the neckline, what I did was take each panel, front and back, mark the centre of that panel with a pin, and then measured from that pin 6.5 inches in both directions. So a 13-inch neckline. I did it in inches because it didn't need to be particularly precise, and I don't think inches are precise. We can argue about that in the comments. So then I just marked those measurements with a pin on each end of the measurement, so one on the start obviously, one on the end, and then once I'd had that measured out, I just matched the pins at the start of the neck hole, or the start of the shoulder seam really, and started sewing from there. And here it is. I've got some nice shots of me without a head, so you can have a good look at the front and the sides, and also the back. I'm curious to see how the back looks myself, because I haven't seen it. It's very difficult to take a photo of your own back, as it turns out. As it is, I'm really, really happy with it. It's not the original design or the original pattern, but, you know, adapt and overcome. It is literally a 90-degree turn. So I'll show you what I changed and how I changed it, and then I'll show you how much is left of the Magic Ball. So the original design was 2 narrower panels at the top, joined at the shoulder seams, 2 decorative panels, one at the front and one at the back to give a bit of variation in the direction of the weave, and then 1 long panel to wrap around and basically take over the being the side seam there, wrap around and join at the middle of the back. Which did not work because the shrinkage on these top panels meant that it wouldn't have fit. I lost a lot of length on these top panels, and I am 3-dimensional. I've got so many dimensions, most of them 3, so I wasn't going to be able to get it over the chest. Let's just say my chest got in the way. So I have a bit of a thought about what I could do, and basically just rotated everything 90 degrees. Look, here's another perfect rendering of the human form. So these panels at the side, the narrower panels, were originally the top panels that were going to go across the shoulders. These 2 decorative panels filled up the space at the front to give me the width there. And then this long panel, which was going to wrap around, is basically paired with another one of these narrow panels at the back to give me the same basic shape. So it's not exactly as I originally planned it, but it has worked and it does fit. And I think that's the main thing. So this used a lot less yarn than I was expecting it to, and I didn't even use all of the 4 cakes that I wound at the beginning. This is what's left over from those. So probably maybe 3 and a bit cakes went into it. I can't give you an exact size for the cakes. I just wind until the little winding machine goes, that's enough. So the Magic Ball itself, if I can hook a finger under the top layer here, because it's in a bag, the Magic Ball itself is still quite large. So I actually used about 200 grams, and that's it. So I did definitely save up way more yarn than I needed to make a poncho shirt situation. So what I'm going to do is another one, because I've got the yarn to do it. So when I was planning this one, I couldn't decide if I wanted a slash neck like this one is, or a V-neck with a folded collar, which you get by not sewing the panels all the way up to the top, and then you have a little folded collar. I could have done this with this, but it would have been asymmetrical, and I'm not sure I'm ready for that. So I'm going to make another one, a longer one. It's going to be sort of knee length or longer, depending on how the shrinkage goes, because we've all learned a lesson there. So that will be a 4-panel long tube, not shaped. I mean, this isn't shaped, but I'm not shaped either. So I don't tend to wear shaped clothing generally, because there's no shape underneath it for shaped clothing to be shaped to. So I've still got about 1.3 kilograms of waste yarn or leftover yarn, and a dog hair. There's quite a lot of dog hair in this as well. Don't tell anyone. So that is a video for another time, but I am going to warp up for another top with this, because I really like... I said to my friend Lizzie last night, because I sent her a photo of this top, and I said, I've reached the middle age where I now wish to be dressed by woodland creatures. And this is, I think, I think this might be my look going forward. Dressed by woodland creatures. She has suggested a long nightcap with a point, so there's probably enough yarn in there to crochet one of those. So if I do that, we can all blame my friend Lizzie for giving me ideas about what woodland creatures would like me to wear. Anyway, thank you very much for watching. It's been a journey. It's been a 3-week journey. And I'm holding that on my hip like I play basketball. I have not touched a basketball in 30 years. But, you know, you never know. Maybe there's a woodland creatures team. I don't know. I'm blathering. I will stop blathering. Again, thank you so much for watching. I hope you had a nice time watching the creation of this really rather nice top, which I am very pleased with, and it is entirely the wrong time of year to be making or wearing this kind of top. I am very warm. It is a warm day. You take care of yourself. I will see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Bye.